Will the clerk please call the roll?
Winters,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Eckhart,
Here.
Sherman,
Here.
Hamilton. Here. Hannaford,
Here.
Stelling,
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Item 4 is discussion and action on the consent agenda. All of the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at city council meetings will be approved by one vote of the council. Any member of the council desiring to discuss an item on the consent agenda may request that it be removed from the consent agenda and placed for discussion as the next item on the regular agenda. It will then be considered separately. The consent agenda consists of the consideration and action on the following items. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 21st, 2020. Item B, approval of the minutes of the special meeting on January 31st, 2020. And item C, approval of claims in the amount of $140,654.45 and payroll expenses of $185,862.38.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Winters, a second by Mr. Sherman to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Winters,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Hamilton. Yes. Hannaford,
Yes.
Stelling.
Yes.
Item 6, reports from staff. Economic Development Committee meeting on January 27th and February 12th, 2020. Dr. Hannaford.
We did have a presentation from Todd Holder from the Alva Arena Authority. Basically coming in, they were needing some information from the city with a feasibility study that they're doing with BKD that will help them get a USDA loan that they are applying for. They have over $25 million pledged, but again, this is a way to help finance some of the arena projects. Just looking at my notes, we did have our first grant that we approved for signage for the Bull Smokehouse Saloon for signage, and I think it was about $1,300 was our match.
That's going to be about correct. Yeah.
That was our first ones. We were excited that somebody took advantage of that. And on economic development, I think.
On the 12th? Huh? You ready for the 12th? Because you weren't at that meeting.
I was going to say, okay, good, because I couldn't remember anything else.
Yeah. You weren't at the meeting on the 12th.
All right.
The 12th is when we met with Dr. Todd Lucas from USDA and the DEQ over the DEQ grant concerning technical assistance for identifying economic development assets. Assets really being defined as places that are either unused or underutilized around town for economic development purposes. So he's going to be working on a list of buildings and other items, other areas, land, things like that within the city limits to help us promote job development and job creation and retail establishments within the city of Alva. What's really neat is that this grant and the READY grant that we also have are both technical assistance grants. They're going to be working real closely hand in hand together. Dr. Lucas's program will be identifying buildings in space. The READY grant, or Communities Unlimited, will be providing the gap report, showing us what industries we need to be trying to target, and you're bringing those two reports together. We'll provide the new economic development specialist with a huge tool for economic development we haven't had in the past.
The meeting on the 12th was I really thought it was a great look at.
I started out with a very negative attitude at first, thinking how could these 3 people or these 5 people come in here and tell us what to do or how to do it? But within 2 minutes after they got started, my whole attitude toward it changed.
There was,
They had ideas we've never thought of. Well, I would never have thought of course. But they were very, very good, very helpful. They're doing 3 cities in Major County. And so they're working hard at finding things that we can do. It's a great, great project.
anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you all. Item B is Personnel Committee meeting on January 27th, 2020. Dr. Henry?
We started off basically talking about our job postings that we were preparing for. I know that we recently have gotten our Working with the Next Step, which gave some really good information that we started from. We've got our Economic Development Specialist posted and our Public Works Supervisor posted. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if that's posted yet, but that will be posted
So we have
within
the
the week.
posting being conducted or
Yeah.
getting put together.
Yes.
Also during that meeting, we talked a little bit about working with Northwestern and the business department to try to get an intern, again, to kind of help out a little bit with the departure of Joe Don. And then also, we brought forth and talked about the recommendation with the interim, which we did for our special meeting by naming Angelica. So that would be my report. Answer any questions.
Does council have any questions? Thank you. Item C is Parks and Buildings Committee on January 28th, 2020 and February 11th, 2020.
Met with the pool task force for both of those. They're moving forward on some really good ideas. And a couple of those are items to be discussed in later on in the agenda. And if anybody from the pool task force has anything to add to that on what was discussed. If you don't, we can wait till the agenda minutes.
We are just wanting to promote the town hall meetings that we're holding
Okay.
because we're asking for citizens' opinions and some input. And so we still have 2 of those left. There's one right now. But we've got one Thursday that is here, and that's from 5 to 7 p.m. And then one on Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. And so we've moved the times around trying to give people a wide array of choices. But if you go to the Alva swimming pool, we created a Facebook page. If you go, you can see those there and share them from there, or watch Scott Brown's or my shares will share them so you can push them on. But encourage people to come to those. We want open discussion. We want people to share ideas, help us come up with things we haven't thought of. But that's what we're working on.
Is the Saturday one here also?
I'm sorry, it is at the middle school cafeteria.
Council have any questions? Item E is the Alva Arena Authority meeting on February 4th. Oh, I already wrote your name beside it, Mr. Eckhart, so when I saw the handwriting, I just went past it. Mr. Eckhart, would you like to give the public library meeting
I was
report?
unable to attend due to a work commitment, but the agenda and minutes are in there. I was told by Council President Wilt that it was a very short and routine meeting. She said it lasted less than 30 minutes. So.
Okay. Now item E, the Alva Arena Authority meeting on February 4th, 2020. I believe all that information's in the packet as well. As always, if you have any questions that we need to pass along to the Arena Authority, let me know and we'll get those passed along to them. But Dr. Hannaford mentioned where they're at in the process with regard to their meeting with the Economic Development Committee. Item F, the Alva Recreation Complex Board meeting on February 12th, 2020. Mr. Sherman.
They are, well, the majority of the discussion, we only meet quarterly now, was seeking quotes for the roof and getting action on that fairly quickly, and then discussion on possible times to get back together as a special meeting since we only meet quarterly to make sure that we can possibly get that done or started before the rainy season hits again. So that's kind of where we're at with that. That's about all that meeting was.
Does council have any questions?
What's the actual issue on the roof other than leaking? I mean, is there ever come up with a pinpoint
I have
cause?
heard, but I have not had a professional opinion.
Yeah,
We have
Let me put
not
it that
been
way.
able to determine the exact cause. We have done several different patches over the years, over the last 8 years. Several different things to try to seal up that roof. None of it has been very successful. And at this time, we need to have a roofing professional tell us what is wrong and what we need to do to fix it.
I mean, is it in just certain area to where not the whole roof has to be done, or is everything leaks?
Right now, it appears that there's no rhyme or reason on where it's leaking.
Well, it's not for roof leaks, but.
Yeah.
Flat roof?
Nope,
No.
nope,
Pitch metal.
Pitch
Yeah.
roof.
yeah.
We just,
Mhm. Yep.
Somebody messed it up when they
Yeah.
put it up there.
Thank you, Brandon. Item G is the Alva Hospital Authority meeting, February 18th. Dr. Hanford.
Yeah, just finished that, and excited to say that a couple weeks ago, we hosted a doctor, and we're very happy to say he's accepted our position. Dr. Galbraith will be starting in July. He will be housed in the professional building. Originally from Utah, lovely family, 2 kids, was looking for a small community. I think it's just a great fit, and I think he's going to do an outstanding job, so we're excited to get him.
General practitioner?
General practitioner, yep. Very excited about being involved in the community, so very happy about that. Other than that, we did have an appointment to allied staff for Steve Madrid, who's covering for Dr. Self, and I've heard that's been going well. And then we had a couple of reappointments. And then we went through our POPI report. We had a approval of a policy, and patient care, same thing. We approved all the, basically just changing, word changing of some policies. And they are continuing to work on replacing all the servers for the new data center project. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions for Dr. Hannaford? Angelica, can you give us a finance committee?
So for our finance committee meeting tonight, we reviewed claims that we are approving tonight. We talked about utility billing. Our utility billing for the month of January was $286,000, which is a 4% increase over the last year. We also talked about the fact that we had, between what was billed and what was pumped out of the well field, we had about a 3 million gallon loss. And we did have a big leak on Flynn Street earlier this month, or excuse me, at the end of last month, and so that is part of that loss. But some of it is also just to be expected. We've done some fire hydrant testing and things like that as well in the city. We also talked about sales tax. Our sales tax was $363,000 for the month of January, which is about 8% short of the budget for the month of January, but year-to-date we're just about 2% short. So pretty close to being on target with our sales tax year-to-date. We also talked about some different projects which will come about in the course of the rest of the meeting tonight. So Joe Don may talk about in his manager's report.
Connor, Brandon, anything to add? Does council have any questions? Thank you, Angelica. Mayor's report. I did attend the Congress of Mayors February 6th and 7th. It was the 10th anniversary of the Congress of Mayors. It was, for those of you that have been, it was another good event. We did have several initiatives to take up and turn into resolutions that we're sending forward to the state legislature. And for those that haven't been, this is an opportunity each year that the mayors from all across the state look at, what collectively our towns need from the state legislature in order to move our towns and cities forward. So, again, it was another good, it's one of my favorite things to do with the Municipal League and the council mayors. So it's very worthwhile. And if any of you get the opportunity to attend in the future, I would recommend you take advantage of that. The other thing I'll let you guys know is that since we've appointed Angelica as the interim business manager, I've been trying to spend a little bit of time with her each week to see what questions she might have, or how things are going in our transition and that sort of thing. If there's anything that you guys are seeing that you want to bring to my attention outside or whatever, if you catch me, and I can bring it up with Angelica. But I know she's trying to learn a whole lot of different things to get us through the transition, and also trying to get ready for budget retreat and some training she has coming up. So she may be hard to catch. That will conclude my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Item J, City Business Manager's report. Go on.
Well, do have a few items that I do want to report on. The Wellfield project that we've been working on, the big project we've been working on in the Wellfield, getting wells 64 and 66 up. We finished the pad pour for those wells today. Got confirmation that the prefab buildings we purchased to go around those wells are to be delivered tomorrow. City workers will be installing those buildings within the next couple of weeks, and I would expect DEQ to come in and inspect within the next 60 days to give us authorization to start using those wells again. In his report to us this morning, Russell did say that there were 7 motors out and where 7 motors needing to be replaced for wells by springtime. Right now we're running about half of our wells to keep water in Alva, which is sufficient for this time frame. But we need to get these 7 wells, and because we'll be needing every one of our wells by springtime and summertime. Also, we met with Betico this morning. They will be starting work on the pump station on the 9th of March. It's a 90 calendar day contract. So they are, unless we've been granted an extension, they should be completed by June 8th. There's liquidated damages per day if it goes beyond that without us authorizing it by granting the extensions. The only reason we could think of that there may be an extension request would be if we can't get a pump in on time, or something goes wrong with the ordering of those pumps, would be the only reason for extension request that we can anticipate today. Betico's been real good to work with in the past. They're the ones that put in our new chlorination station. They've worked with us in the past. They've been very good to work with. We did receive notification today from the Department of Tourism that our Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application for the swimming pool had been declined. They declined funding that this year. So that's just officially that grant application will be closed and we'll be able to move forward. Want to remind the council that we have council training slated for Tuesday, February 25th at 5 o'clock in this building. OMAG will be here to conduct the meeting with city attorney, with one of their staff attorneys. It's a longtime city attorney, David Weatherford. And I expect the executive director from OMMS, Steve Whitlock, to be here also as part of that training.
So don't I have the 24th?
I did
I
too.
also have the 24th.
I have the 24th, okay. That's why
What I
it's
said.
hurry enough to put it on
Yeah.
here.
I have it on my calendar.
Me too.
I have the email here that says.
That's why we
Okay,
changed
I'm
it.
very sorry. I've got it on my calendar for Monday, the 24th.
Perfect. Good job.
So
I'll say that.
I will make sure that that is right and that we've got that going tomorrow. If there are any changes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I apologize for that. I will send out reminders right before, prior to that meeting also. See, the last thing I would like to say is that this is the last meeting I will attend for the city of Alva. It has been my privilege over the past 8 years to serve the citizens of Alva, to be able to work with this city council. You have been wonderful to work with. The man could not have asked for a better group of individuals to work with than you gentlemen. Staff has been great.
Get that.
Huh?
See if I send him a card. No. He does that to me all the time.
Everybody, staff has been wonderful to work with. They've been willing to do everything we've asked of them. Hopefully I have been able to leave Alva in a little bit better position than when I found it. And with that, I will conclude my manager's report.
Well, and I was going to finish up your report for you, but, you've been here 8 years roughly, and since I've been mayor the last 5 years, there have been millions of dollars worth of projects that have been completed under your watch. There have been things that haven't been done in our community, and sometimes 80 years with the water tower project, $2.5 million there, millions of dollars on the streets, transfer station, remodel at City Hall, and countless other water projects, sewer projects, and many other things that I remember that as I was coming in to the mayor's office, looking at the daunting list of things that needed to be accomplished in our community, and you've been there every step of the way to help lead us and give us good information and help us make good decisions on behalf of the people in this community. And Joe Don, we're going to wish you well. We're going to miss you, but I'm sure you'll do great things for the city of Guyman. So thank you for all you've done for our community.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Item 7, remarks and inquiries by citizens. Remind everybody, if you haven't signed in, please go ahead and sign in on the sheet at the podium. And then if you have comments, you'll have 2 minutes per speaker, and please identify yourself.
I have a question.
Well, we can't answer questions, but you can certainly ask.
Really? Can't answer questions? Well, I'm Paul Barton, and I just wanted to make and I think Joe Don is going to do this, but just make a point of a clarifying statement with regard to items that are upcoming on the agenda. Is that okay for me to go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
Okay. With regard to the request for quotes, seeking quotes for the engineering firms, I think that our swimming pool task force, what we voted on was to request the ability to spend some funds. And I think, and Joe Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is okay, that we'll be able to do that as long as the quotes are under $10,000. And I just wanted to make sure that that was a clarifying statement, because that's kind of our expectation to meet our timeline. We have a very aggressive and ambitious timeline, and the first item is we have to check the pool. We need a professional to come in and to evaluate the pool to make sure that it is in a condition that it can operate safely before we go any further with anything else. So that's something that I just wanted to make a clarifying statement on.
And you'll have opportunity during those agenda items as task force members to...
Okay, I didn't realize that, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, well, I am going to switch the order on the agenda and address number 9 first, because I think it will lead better into number 8. So, discussion and action for $6,500 for the removal and disposal of filter media from the pool filtration tanks and the removal of tar and sealant from the basin of the pool by sandblasting. Mr. Sherman, would you care to...
So basically what this comes down to is we've opened up the media tanks. God knows last time the media was changed in them, but in order to see if the tanks are even still usable, we have to suck all the media. It's just a bunch of sand. We have to get a truck in there to suck the sand out of the tank to see if it's still sound and if the baffles in it are still good. And then the sandblasting of the pool and the removal of the tar will allow the engineer at a later point to examine the pool, make sure that the basin is still good enough to actually repair, or we're just spinning our wheels. So.
And there's somebody locally that can do that, or is there somebody that comes
The
in?
sandblasting?
No, or suck the sand out, or both of it?
Sucking the sand out, I think we have a quote from Byron Shirley, who has the truck. He uses it for his car washes. And then the sandblasting, I think, will be done mostly by prison labor supervised. Megan, you correct me if I'm wrong on that?
That's correct.
So that's part of the reason. Most of the cost in the sandblasting is equipment and sand. So.
Was none of this addressed by the state inspector when he gave his report for all the things that needed to be repaired?
Leakages and things like that. It basically comes down to yes and no. The filter system needs to be cleaned out anyway, but in order to even see if it's a viable pool to repair, I mean, we got to go around and do things to the gutters and stuff like that. We need to replace the tar with what you're supposed to actually patch the pool with, which is a polymer. And so, you know, we're losing, what we say last year? 22,000 gallons a day somewhere. And we think that's through that tar seepage through the basin. So the sandblasting will allow us to get in there and view that. And then also get an engineer in there to look at the cracks and make sure that they're not too deep, that the pool's not over settling somewhere, that there's not more that needs to be done. We're not putting lipstick on a pig.
But is that, I mean, we've had engineered plans already, so I guess that's my, I mean, is that not a part of those plans?
No.
Okay, really?
Those engineering plans did not address, because we focused primarily on the construction of a new pool.
Right.
It did not address a lot of the rehab issues for the current pool, which is the direction we're trying to head at this time.
I thought we had
We
done
had a-
both.
Yeah, we did. 'Cause
We had an engineer's estimate on what they thought it would cost. It was a very vague from this number to this number to repair the pool. But we don't have, they've never gotten in the basin and looked at, we've never had a pool engineer get in there and look at specifically what it will take to bring that basin either into good use or whether it's even worth it.
And that engineering, the engineering report that he's talking about, that is, that was based upon repairs required that the pool, the State Department's pool inspector had listed as deficiencies. And they did not get into the filter media, sandblasting of the pool, or any of that, because those were not listed as deficiencies on that report.
When you talk about state inspector, you're saying like
The health department.
So.
The health department gave us a list of, here's your deficiencies. The $1.5 million quote that we had that was repair quote was based upon that list of deficiencies.
Has that report been given to the task force?
Everything's been made available to the task force.
So is the state,
There's not an engineering report that goes along with that.
right, but I mean, as far as the health department guy,
He's since changed his mind and changed the scope of the project to get it back open again. So
What do you mean he's changed his mind?
he's changed it, the
It's the
pool
same
task
person?
force.
Yes.
Yes, the exact same person that told us last time that we couldn't open without a 1.5.
And did he give us a paper that said we couldn't open?
Yes,
Yes.
And we have that available?
yes.
And so
if he's following regulations, why would he?
How can he change?
that's what we're trying to figure out. I've talked to Megan about this multiple times. We're trying to get him, he sent a letter back that said that, according to what their budget was, that he would approve the scope, but he doesn't define what that scope is or what those line items were, and we'd like him to sign off on the line items so that we know if we spend that money, that he's gonna walk in and say, it can open. And there's not gonna be this over here and over that over there.
To answer that a little bit for you, he is preparing, like you guys had from the engineer, where it had a timeline and it showed what was falling in each time that had to be completed from them, that they had prepared, that Joe Don, I believe, and one of the engineers had sent to them. He's preparing that now with this repair plan instead of the new pool plan, because we had the 3-step plan initially. So now that plan's been scrapped, of course, because the bond money isn't available. So now it's gone to a repair plan. So he's preparing that for us now, because I don't have the capability of doing that the same way that they require it. But they've got a list of what we believe addresses each deficiency on their health department report, and he has agreed. So that's his page that he provided us that said that he's approved that scope. They agree that that takes care of each of our response to each of those, and our plan for each of those takes care of that. And he will build us the matrix that shows when each piece is happening.
And come June, he won't change his mind back?
His statement to me is that if we have done the things that are listed on that, step by step, and he comes in May, we'll have to meet the chlorination requirements.
Do you have his
And then-
signature on that?
Yes. And then in July, they'll come again before the 4th of July, because that's the big event where they'll have a bunch of, and they'll test the chlorination again. As long as that passes, we'll be good.
So the 6,500 that item in the agenda, basically, for anybody that's ever wrecked a car or hit a deer, you don't know what the damage is until you can get in there and look at the inside of the car. You can say that the bumper's broken, but did it push my radiator? That's what we're doing. We're taking the bumper off, taking the hood up, opening the hood up and checking what's underneath. Because it may come down to, one of those tanks is $150,000, and at that point, we're looking at a whole different project. So we're trying to spend as little money as possible before we start getting into huge engineering plans to try to figure out what exactly we're getting into.
I just want to make sure because a lot of people have been asking me about this. From his report that he gave us that we had to get fixed, the reports was at least, I thought it was closer to 2, I thought it was like 1.7.
Yeah, it was 1.7 million.
So, I mean, we're going from 1.7 to maybe be able to fix some filters.
60,000.
That's ridiculous.
I'd like to see him come where we can actually ask him questions.
I would too.
And that way we've got them on record, nail them down instead of just, that before, I mean, we take them at their word that here's.
It's the
you
third
gotta
time.
do.
Megan and I have
Shut
discussed
down.
that, and
Shut
and the pool committee have discussed that on trying to get him to 100% sign off, because I'm with you guys. I don't want to spend money on the pool for them to show up in May and say, it's not going to happen. And until I see a stamp or a signature on a piece of paper from him, it's kind of hard to do that when he's the same person that told us
We have a
otherwise.
pool this year, had he set this up already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This would have been
He
done,
wouldn't have needed anything.
Did he change his idea of the drainage of the water, of where that's going and all that stuff as well?
Well, we
No, so
fixed
they
that
fixed
last
that.
year.
Yeah, that was already fixed.
We fixed that last year. I don't know that that's ever been addressed, but this year or not.
Step 1, the big step that they took for the sewage lift station to get the water where it needs to go, and the chlorination, the chemtrol and all of that, those were big parts of that would have been part of this project had it not already been done. So because step 1 was done already by the city, that took care of a big chunk of the
But even
concern.
with the drainage to where that was sinking, I mean,
So the
that's,
pool's still.
Well, the channel's
Oh,
along the side.
that's the guttering issue.
Yeah.
right.
Right, I don't know that that's been addressed at all.
That's part of removing the paint and the tar, because the
The
gutters may
engineer-
be off because of the patches.
So
Not
we're
because of
thinking,
the sign.
hopefully if we maybe do this part,
It's true.
as we feel it might rise enough to
The
recirculate.
engineer is
and-
gonna come and look at that again, but we had it tested by a pool professional, and the maximum that the guttering system is off is 1 inch in the worst spot on that north end. And based on the contractor and the pool expert, they said that with 1 inch, if that old tar that has the major ridges throughout the gutter is removed and put back with the correct polymer, it'll cause a smooth surface, and the water should be able to circulate with a 1 inch difference.
I'm all for if we can get it, but
Me
that's,
too, but-
that's crazy. This is crazy that we've gone through, I hate to say, such a divisive situation in our community from somebody, hopefully now you see what we've been going through in terms of how we get, I mean,
The information we get and the information he changes, it's crazy.
It's a big difference.
that's a huge
It's
difference.
massive, yeah.
Well, we spent a lot of money just going on
We
the
did.
fact that,
Yes.
you know, that we couldn't open it because we had to meet health department regulations.
So the polymer you're talking about replacing is the sealing on in the guttering?
We'll use it for the gutters and will be used for the basin of the pool. It's
But
called
that's-
water stop,
It's-
but it becomes like a harder surface than the tar can do,
Right.
and it will be a complete level, smooth surface. So there won't be the raises, it won't be the stoppage of the water. I think the molding was a big concern that they had because it was stopping the water flow and then it wouldn't be able to drain into one of the pipes. And so that should resolve all of that.
From the research that I've done, the tar tends to seep, whereas this stuff makes an actual complete seal over the cracks, and that's what it's used for, is for sealing the cracks. And so where the pool is cracked in the past, we'd used, which was the old way of doing it. It's not necessarily the wrong way, it's just the old way of doing it, and they've patched it with tar, and tar seeps. So as much as that pool has been patched, I'm sure that there's a lot of seepage.
So do we have any idea what the new engineering plans would cost in terms of, I guess, this smaller scope maybe?
That is
or-
one of the things that is the
That's
next
number-
agenda,
That's
yeah.
the next item.
What did we pay so far for the engineering that we've had done? What was that? Just,
I would have to look that up to be for sure. I don't have that with us tonight.
okay.
We got an estimate when we first started looking at it from Paddock that was around $7,800 for him to just get started. And that would be to provide us with the engineering, not necessarily a plan, but what engineering wise we would have to do. So that's why the $10,000 is, but that's the next item. So,
Does this have the full support of the Public Parks and Buildings Committee, this item?
the 6,500, I would, yes.
Of course, I think if we do one, more like we're gonna commit to the other, but, I mean,
They really did go.
I know when we talked, we used to be on the, country club board, when they was talking about redoing their pool, talked about sandblasting, we always got like two different opinions. One, yeah, I'll do it, and then someone come in and said, oh no, that's the worst thing you can do. So, I mean, we do one, I'd like to see the engineers say, yes, that's fine, to, you know, it's more like I said, we're gonna do both if we do one, but,
The
I'd like to
sandblasting
have
was
the engineer
recommended
say-
by a pool professional.
okay.
Am I right?
That's-
Yes.
That
It
was-
had a lot to do
And
with the
it's-
sealant that we
question.
were using was different. The country club probably used the correct sealant. We weren't. So that's a big issue, big part of why they need to sandblast it, because they need to see what
Well,
the extent of the damage
The
is.
country club, because I was part of that project, excuse me, but we did sandblast the entire pool, removed everything off of it. Then they came back in, but we spent a lot of money on it. I mean, we spent more money than we're talking the city pool. Then we re-gunned out of the whole pool, put all new tile and coping around the whole pool, all new plumbing. I mean, we completely redid, we just used the old shell, that's it. And we built like a new shell, a new plumbing around that old shell. So, I mean, we did a lot to that pool. If you sandblast cement, you're not going to damage it. It's not going to hurt it a bit.
Well, and if we are, we need to know that. So that's a big piece too. If
Well,
we start
that's just what I'm saying.
sandblasting and we're causing a big hole, we need to know it's there.
Once
If
you
you
see
sandblast,
that the
you see a big
engineer
hole,
says, yes, that's fine.
That's a big issue right there.
They came and inspected the pool basin, the pool company, and inspected it, and they were surprised by how good of shape the actual floor of the pool is in, considering the 22,000 gallons a day that's being lost. And that was their recommendation, that sandblasting will help with the tar removal. It'll help I think he called it etch the concrete, that will help the polymer adhere to it the way it needs to do, so that seal will be better and it won't come out once water gets put in. But they think sandblasting needs to be done to all the guttering, all of the pool basin, and all the walls.
What's the pool company that you've been in contact with?
Christine.
Pristine Pool.
Where we stand on, kind of, since it's unbudgeted, where we stand on funds to, I mean, we've got possibly $60,000 hanging overhead for the
Well,
audit stuff, so.
Yeah, this 60, that audit funds have been calculated into what's already been, is what's been calculated into what's already come out of our contingency fund. Basically, this $6,500 will come out of the contingency fund, up to the $10,000 that we have estimated for the engineering. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. Will come out of the contingency fund. Anything over that $10,000 of what the engineer will cost to do the plan of repair, for lack of a better term, if it's over $10,000, the council will need to decide where that money's gonna come from, where we're gonna a budget amendment will have to be brought back.
Well, that's what I want to see, that we're not robbing one area to help another. And
We have
make sure-
not done that yet.
And anything that
As
we.
much as we can. I mean, as
Right.
much as we haven't done that for anything that we've done. There are a lot of projects that have been put on hold because of unfunded mandates, so to speak. I mean, professional building roof,
Yeah.
the mold issue at the professional building, the audit that we do not have on the books yet, on what that's exactly gonna cost. There's a lot of things that
What-
have,
Yeah, it's gonna cost, because that's coming out of contingency to where this is gonna end up,
Our contingency's gonna be gone.
contingency's gonna be gone. But there are also a lot of projects that have been put on hold this year because of numerous different reasons. Sales tax is down 2%. Utility rates are,
They're up, but not up what we budgeted.
not up what we expected. Right. That's just that's just a few of those things that have come into play about not doing projects that we had slated to do this year. The things that we have been doing this year, such as Oklahoma Boulevard,
Been part of the bond issue.
that we've had specific money set aside for
Yeah.
that could only be used for those purposes.
Well, my main focus is that of course, once we get the engineer, and maybe get the state guy on, and line it out to where, just so we don't automatically just focus on, trying to get another year out of it where we don't spend money on something that is wasted in the long run. Once we get those reports, we'll have a big picture and see what's what our ultimate goal, hopefully, our target is this time instead of what we focused on last year.
I feel like Parks and Building Committee and the Pool Task Force are both in agreement that we don't want to put lipstick on a pig, and we don't want to
Right.
we don't want to dump money into it year after year after year just to keep something open that we may just need to close and replace at some point. So,
which was that's where we went with our.
right, well, it's
Yes.
right. So I mean, it very well could be with the recommendations made by the health department and a good report from an engineer that we can get it back open for. And I think their plan is 5 to 7 years so that we can build funding for a new pool in 5 to 7 years. But I think that's the plan currently being kicked around anyway.
That's why we're trying to do these town halls and stuff simultaneously with the rest of this project, because if we have hopes of getting open this summer, we've got to do them both at the same time, which was recommendation from Parks and Buildings. But we're trying to conduct the citizen input part at the same time as doing this, so that we can know what direction they want us to go in.
Well, I'm all for it, if it's feasible to revamp it and not be, like say, figure here 10 years down the road, we're gonna face the same issues, and that's great, everything, but But we just had a whole different picture last year.
Yeah.
Well, this engineering report is gonna be very detailed.
Yeah.
And it's key for telling us, how do we move forward? Because, I mean, we may come back and go, it just can't happen, so, but we'll have to see what that looks like.
Hopefully not, but.
Hopefully not. I think everyone on our
It's
committee.
it's kind of hard to believe once we, went through what we did last year. We basically told that pools around the state were getting closed because they didn't meet, same thing like we were fighting. I mean,
Tennessee?
Yeah.
It makes me
Moreland's
wonder.
in the same boat.
Moreland?
Tennessee is building a new
They did,
pool.
actually. Tennessee just rebuilt one.
Well, they're in the process.
They're in the process.
It makes me wonder if they came in and they realized that half the pools or, whatever in Oklahoma are getting closed, and, whoa, wait a minute, guys.
I don't know if Jodon has spoken to Sam Canella at the state recently, but they had a large portion of those pools and bathing places, people quit. So he has got 2 brand new ones that he's in the process of training, but he is the one over them and he's who's talking to us for this. But they had a whole department disappear.
But he's the same guy that
He is
did
the same
our
guy that was,
inspection.
He's the exact same guy that came down and did our inspection
He's in
last
charge
year.
of it now?
he's in charge
He
of
was
that.
in charge of it last year.
He wasn't the inspector that came for the first FAD report. He was the one that came back for the reopen process. But yeah, he did. And he is training a whole new department. So I don't know whether that has anything to do with their big mass problems with the pools they were finding everywhere. But yes.
I know that's where we went down the same road on the country club out there. The health department started the whole wrinkle about everything. Of course, we were losing a lot of water out there too. And everything, but the same issues were fought out there that the health department come in and told us that.
And we're trying really hard not to bring you any waste when we bring your request for this. So like Brandon said with the sandblasting, that's truly sandblasters, the gas, the sand, no labor, no anybody getting paid for doing the work. Same thing on the removal, that's for the removal, disposal of that old filter media because it's got some special, because it's got chlorine through it, some special disposal requirements. So we are not trying to bring you anybody getting paid for these jobs. We're going to do the work as inexpensively as possible. We're going to stop if we hit a major roadblock that shows us something isn't right. That, like Brandon said, those tanks are incredibly expensive. If we get it open and it isn't repairable, the project stops. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stop if we have to.
Hopefully not just that, but like I say, we get true picture. I mean, it's so hard to believe once we went through it.
Right.
I mean, have good intentions, but
So for this item, it really is a exploratory surgery, if you will.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Good way to put it.
So we'll, the approval of this item would be that we're going to move forward with the sandblasting. So, is there a motion?
In the filtration tank.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for $6,500 for the removal, $6,500. Should that say not to exceed? Not to exceed $6,500 for the removal and disposal of filter meter from the pool tanks and the removal of tar and sealant from the basin of the pool by sandblasting.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman, a second by Mrs. Hamilton to approve an amount not to exceed $6,500 for the removal and disposal of filter media from the pool filtration tanks and the removal of tar and sealant from the basin of the pool by sandblasting. Is there any further discussion?
To clarify, assuming that these measures pass, the contingency fund is wiped out, correct?
Not yet.
No,
Well,
after the audit.
after
Okay.
these items combined, yes, with that on the horizon. Is there any further discussion?
I'll just add, which puts us in a pretty precarious
Mm-hmm.
position for the city.
Please call the vote.
Sherman,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Eckhart.
Yes.
All right, now we'll go to item 8. Discussion and action to seek quotes from engineering firms to evaluate required swimming pool repairs. Mr. Sherman, I'll let you kick that one off too.
We kind of already started the discussion on it. To answer your question, the interim city manager does have the authority to sign that contract. So yes, if we get to that point, after sandblasting, I really hope that after sandblasting, we don't look at it and go, we're done. So I hope that we do get to that point, but it's contingent on the sandblasting, is what I'd say the only thing it's contingent on, and not exceeding the 10,000. So,
So we're not gonna put an amount on that one? I know we don't know what it's gonna be,
Not to exceed 10,000.
not to exceed 10,000.
but that's not in the motion. That's down to financial impact.
Well, you,
We need to
however
put it
you-
up.
You
In the
can,
top.
whoever makes the motion can decide whether or not to include that stipulation.
Can we, is this something that has to be done now, or can we not do the removal and then the sandblasting and then see and then come back? Or is it just timing?
I think for their timeline and their goal of getting it sandblasted, we would not have another meeting before they would know whether or not they needed.
Even if we get a special meeting?
We could do a special meeting
A
at
big
that point.
portion of the engineering statement is going to be regarding the bathhouse, or not the bathhouse, sorry, the pump house, because of its crumbling pillars. And so that's a big part of the plan and problem, is that has the potential of collapse or whatever, and we need to know. That's a potential very expensive project.
Did we have, wasn't that part of the last engineering report?
It was part of the health report.
It was not part of the report because the basin and the filters were not questioned as far as a deficiency, were listed as a deficiency. What was listed as deficient, where it came about was when we were going to repair the pool, or replace the pool, closing that off and demolishing that and rebuilding it.
But on part of the, so that would have been a guesstimate anyways for the repairs for 1.7?
Right.
Okay.
Has there been any thought, discussion, looking into any alternative funding methods to help offset some of these costs? Because I'm struggling with the fact that we're talking about, especially at this point, if this passes, we're eliminating our contingency fund. I'm struggling with that.
Well, I've got a meeting Angelica and I have a meeting Thursday morning with a potential funding source
And that was,
for a portion of this.
and assuming that pans out, that would take the place of these contingency funds that were
The city will still have to put a match in on it. So it would be part of our match.
Okay.
When you say funding source, funding for what though? Because just the 10,000 and 6,500, or?
Well, it would go toward the entire repair cost of, what I will request is it go toward the entire repair cost of getting the pool open in 2020.
Which would include some of
Which
this.
could include some of this. We get into it and find out that we've got to replace a filter tank. Could include that, or at least help pay for part of that. I'm real hesitant to say much more than that because I have not had that meeting yet. And
Basically, we got to come down and decide how important this is as a contingency fund, because it was set aside for unexpected, which is just unexpected. And then once we go past that, we're start to chop other areas, everything. So,
Well, we didn't.
Areas we've already frozen, or
Yeah, we've cut probably 75% of our capital projects. already.
wall down in revenues and have no contingency funds to fall back on for something else coming up. That, I mean, that's my concern.
And
Is
we don't know how much an audit, a second audit that we, I mean,
It's not on the books, that one plan.
where does that put the city in as far as cash goes? What's our cash position in this? Let's say this goes, how much cash do we have in the bank right now? Is basically what I'm getting at. And if this happens, how long till we replace this?
Well, our cash will fluctuate from day to day.
I mean, that's fair. But,
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
you'll have an average balance. I mean,
if it
are
comes
we-
to the
do we
point,
have the cash
then we
flow
have
to
to, then we
replace
have
this?
to basically get a CD turned in to help pay for some of this stuff.
Well, and many of the CDs are in the stabilization fund, and the stabilization funds can only be accessed in the event of a declared emergency.
Which, I mean, is my concern. Are we going to be able to refund this contingency fund? And if so, what's the timeline look based on where our current cash flow sits?
How long did it take to build it to where we're at now?
This contingency, the money we have in contingency is a budgeted contingency every year based upon our cash.
So we basically block out a portion of the budget of unknown
Right,
expenses.
right,
Yeah, percentage-wise.
Plan on spending it, hope we don't.
right.
So that just from now until July, until we would rebudget that for next.
What it doesn't, the unknowns are the unknowns. So while spending the entirety of the contingency fund isn't bad for the city to do over the course of its fiscal year, it's what it's there for if it's necessary. But what it does is it puts us in a tight spot if anything else were to go wrong.
In the next 5 months at this point.
Yeah, we're 5 months out.
How soon would the sandblasting and all that stuff, how soon could that be done since that's been approved?
Started Monday.
Starting Monday?
Yeah, we've got to get the inmate thing, it's preliminarily lined up, waiting on this decision, and so we'll have those
And then
lined
you
up
meet,
for folks. to start.
Joe Don, you meet next, when'd you say?
This
This coming
This
Thursday.
coming Thursday.
How long will it take to sandblast the pool?
Depending on the weather.
Yeah. We have it 2 weeks is what we have. We are asking the sandblasting project and the filter media to be removed as quickly in that 2 weeks as possible, because we want to allow that engineer to get in here and get it looked at and get us a report back, because his report is going to be absolutely necessary for us to take the next steps to get it open. And if we don't, that was our reason for asking for this now instead of trying to do a special meeting, because if we push it 2 weeks, that pushes the total timeline, and that's not factoring in weather or anything. We have a pretty,
Do you have an engineer picked out?
we have got 2 that we're speaking to right now, that we spoke to today, that are supposed to get us estimated amounts for the project. So we've, one of them I know that we've submitted, what we submitted to the health department, and he's gonna base his cost off of what they've got to come and look at, including that pump house, and I think that's gonna be the most costly part and the hardest work for them. Because we've been told now that the guttering system isn't as big of a concern as what we thought it was originally.
Okay. So if we do delay this and we do say, let's table this for a special meeting in a week and a half, 2 weeks, how does that actually slow down the process? I mean, because we're already talking with engineers, we're already getting costs from them.
The reason is because we can't go ahead and get one on their schedule. So the engineers will have a pretty decent amount of time, that's the problem.
So,
We
So
want to be
basically-
able to go ahead and.
and even by approving this tonight, what we're approving is to seek quotes. And so the direction to the task force is to seek quotes that don't exceed the $10,000, which I would recommend whoever makes the motion that that be part of your motion. But then the quotes will still have to come back for approval to either,
Still have to go to special
Well,
meeting.
no,
business
That was the
manager
part
can
that we're-
approve this.
Right, yeah, they will have
The money's not spent unless the quotes come back.
Right, and since it's within the 25,000, I'm assuming that stays the same for the.
She's got a little less, well, she could have, depending on 25,000.
We really didn't set a spending limit for an interim. honestly.
No,
We should consider that.
well, okay, her normal spending, or
Would-
the finance director's normal spending limit is 15,000.
So this still covers this?
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned pumps for the well field, where's that money gonna be?
That's coming.
That'll be coming out of water maintenance.
Oh, so there's already.
That's another budgeted item already.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, I just, sounded like it was
That's, I mean,
something
that's,
new.
No, we budget to replace pumps and motors every year.
Oh, so that's not part of the plan, it's just part of.
It's just part of maintenance.
do we anticipate it to be 5 to 7 every year?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do,
Really?
yeah.
'Cause it's,
We've got,
what, a third of them?
We got 30 something.
no, we got close to 30
We-
wells.
In activity though, we have 30 in activity? That are active, oh, okay, I thought it was more.
So
Run
if we-
along.
If we have two, would we still select one that would have to be approved by council? If we have two bidders, I guess, for the,
Not, as long as they're not over the,
so that's
The-
just.
the purchasing limit.
Spending limit and the $50,000 is the threshold for going to bid. So quotes underneath that mark.
Correct.
Until they get to 25, they don't require council.
That's what I'm
So-
saying,
so-
either one, we could spend, I mean, if we approve this, the money is spent at that point to get it done.
if you approve this with a not to exceed of 10,000, the union business manager can sign that.
So
With our amount request, we're also asking for them to give us the date that they could come. So if somebody says we can't come till April 1st, but we bid 7,000, and then the other one says we give 8,000, but we can be here in 2 weeks, as soon as your sandblasting's done, then that's who we would select. So that's probably
and that
the,
would be the lowest best
That's the
requirement
lowest best
that we have.
requirement, yes.
So if we approve this, the task force would go to work, get their engineering quotes or whatever. They would then run that probably just quickly by Parks and Buildings, and then the interim business manager can execute that.
That's what I was gonna say, is I'm pretty sure Angelica would bring it to Parks and Building before.
Yeah.
Would you
I mean-
feel better about it going to finance and having finance have a special meeting to approve the quote prior to?
Well, I mean, if we agree under 10,000, I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying, yeah, that's what I thought.
I guess my question though for the task force and for you guys, is, let's say we do find out that it's gonna be less than the 1.7 to fix it, much less, but more than kind of what we could do right now. Are you all ready to make a recommendation that we still might have to wait until next budget year to?
yes.
Okay.
So what I've heard for whoever is going to make a motion, that if this is to approve, it will be an amount not to exceed $10,000, and it will be only if the filters in the basin, or it would not happen if the filters in the basin are irreparable or inoperable.
Correct.
After sandblasting.
But the engineer may be the only one to make that decision, so they may be able to come look at it and say, I'm done, walking away.
I think
Surely
we're
they
expecting
can
some
charge that
repair.
full amount then.
Yeah, I think we're expecting some repair to the laterals that are in those tanks, because, we've heard rumors that there's media that's been leaking out into the pool from the tanks, so I mean, something's not quite right in there, and they're 80 years old and haven't been seen in probably 30 years or more, so there's no telling what it is. I think we're expecting some repair there, but we would want that available for the engineer to look at, to evaluate, to tell us what needs to happen to make it go forward.
So the bid may be for full engineering, but
Like I say, that won't be full engineering.
Yeah, that's just gonna be the
well, I
inspection.
mean, to give an estimate of the stuff, but like once he comes and looks at something, he may say, either he can go ahead and do all his thinking, or he may come and say,
Well, like we said, we'll cancel him. If we
Right.
start the sandblasting, we
Right. I
find
mean,
some
so it may
major
not
holes,
cost the
or
whole-
we'll say, sorry, we don't need you,
Yeah.
and that will be spent it all.
so it may not
Once
cost
again,
the
we're
whole
only
bid.
approving, at this point, we're only approving a quote. They're gonna sandblast first.
Right.
So the timeline of when that engineer comes, besides him saying I can be here in 2 weeks, is also contingent upon if they just say, hey, he can be here in 3 days, and our sandblasting is not done, Angelica could say, I'm not gonna sign that until
Yeah.
after the sandblasting is done. So I mean, we're just going quotes.
I mean, and realistically, Angelica cannot sign that contract regardless. So
And could choose to bring it back to council if necessary.
if there was question about whether or not it should or should not proceed,
Well, I agree, but I also think in the meantime, we've got to get that new, the guy, whatever his name is.
Sam.
I mean, I still want some
Yeah,
Department assurance.
assurances from him that this, we're just,
That's why he sent that original document, because he told me that that is their acceptance of a repair plan for us. And so he said he understands that that repair plan can change. We'd have to make modification based on the engineer's recommendation. I will talk to him again and get him to put that timeline together for us. And as soon as we get something from the engineer giving us a directive, the problem is they don't give you a directive. The state doesn't get to give them a directive. And that's kind of a pain. So I think Larkin is the one who gave what needed to be done to the state health department, and then they approved that plan. Now, this engineer will give what has to be done, and he'll give us the final, all those dates and stuff. But
we don't have an approved plan because there's not a plan in place yet.
yes, the engineer will do an official plan.
And that's what we had before, is we have that approved plan. Here we don't.
But is the engineer gonna go kind of off what is required by the state?
Right.
yeah, that's,
They have to.
I mean, but the target was moved.
here's the thing, there's a,
that's my
Yeah.
point. I mean,
And that's the part we want to get
what's
in writing.
frustrating is there's a dozen different ways to meet the state's requirements, but what we're seeking is the minimum standard, just to get open, my understanding.
That's a big difference from what I think was looked at before in repairs, because the repair plan was to repair the pool and make it have a long life. Where now we're looking at minimum standards to repair what absolutely has to be done for the health department, because we want to increase the life 5 to 7 years to move forward with something else. So I think
Basically gives
that,
breathing room.
yes. Let's look at some savings, let's look at some grants, let's look at, what's next, but
In all fairness, that's what we did not have, was breathing room. As we were going through our deliberation, it was, the pool's gonna close, how do we keep it open without closing it? So it's a little different.
which, I mean, you
Approach.
saw with grants, I mean. we had
Yeah, and
pretty-
then it still didn't
We had a
pan
pretty
out
strong
quite
grant
right.
application, but
Well, I plan on making a phone call, find out if that's because they knew the matching funds weren't in place, or if there were other reasons for not funding that
well,
this
that'd
year.
be true. I mean, if we did have.
If they knew the matching funds were not in place, they're going to award that somewhere else,
Yeah.
so that,
I had thought we had withdrawn that application.
No, we'd already submitted it, we wasn't withdrawing it. It's in the exact letter is, although your project represents a legitimate need for outdoor recreation development improvements, your project application was not recommended for funding this year. If you would like to resubmit this application for 2020 funding, for the 2020 funding cycle, please notify us.
Is this a matching funds grant? Is that what that was?
Yes, 50/50.
But how that panned out, at least leaves that available for us.
Yeah.
Which is probably better in this case than having withdrawn it, because that would look bad on us had we withdrawn it.
I know, and Alex isn't here anymore, but between Alex and Joe Don and myself, we had several conversations with those people, and they were excited about our project.
My guess, they knew that there was the matching funds weren't going to be available because of the bond measure going around.
Yeah.
Which is, that's fair.
Yeah, I'd hate to be the city that had the next bid in line, and they gave it to us, and then we didn't use it.
Yeah.
If there's not any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the pool task force to seek quotes from engineering firms to evaluate required swimming pool repairs not to exceed 10,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mrs. Hamilton to approve the swimming pool task force to seek quotes from engineering firms to evaluate required swimming pool repairs not to exceed 10,000. Is there any further discussion? My only question, Brandon, is if you would want that motion to spell out the sandblasting requirement and conditions. And if you would want to amend your motion.
Yeah.
I think we could amend the motion, that one has to fail. We went through this with Rick
Only
before.
if she agrees to second it, I think.
Yeah, and we need to do the sandblasting. We need to put that in there.
Motion to seek quotes from engineering firms to evaluate swimming pool repairs not to exceed 10,000 and after sandblasting and remover of filter media.
After the results of the sandblasting or something.
I think, I don't know if I can talk during this part, but I think that the engineer is the only one who can give us a sandblasting result.
No, your time.
I still think that falls on Angelica. She knows what the will of the council is as far as when that needs to happen. So I don't think the original amendment's needed, honestly.
I think it muddies the water, honestly. I think I trust Angelica's decision.
Grant permission to the swimming pool task force to seek quotes from engineering firms to evaluate the swimming pool repairs not to exceed $10,000.
Original motion, you're not willing to amend it. Are you still willing to second it?
I will second.
All right, we've got a motion by Sherman, second by Hamilton. As stated previously. Is there any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Sherman,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
And yes.
Hanford, I
So we're missing one.
I knew I was missing somebody, but I couldn't figure out who.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone that's the task force and the committee for the work that you guys have put into bringing this to us today. And we'll hope for the best. All right. Item 10 is discussion and action on the purchase of aviation gas from Ascent Aviation for an amount not to exceed $25,606.60. This is an item that exceeds the purchasing limit for the anybody within the city without council approval. It's cost of goods sold. It's jet fuel and regular avgas, or is it just avgas? It's just avgas. And so it's in order for them to be able to sell it, they've got to be able to buy it. So,
Make a motion to approve the purchase of aviation gas from Ascent Aviation, amount not to exceed $25,606.60.
Second.
have a motion by Dr. Hannaford and a second by Mr. Sherman to approve the purchase of aviation gas from Ascent Aviation for an amount not to exceed $25,606.60. Is there any further discussion?
Seems like this is something we visit fairly often, since it's kind of a in and out thing. Is there any way we could make an exception just for this one purchase to where this doesn't always have to come to us? Raise the limit?
Our purchasing ordinance is pretty specific on where it does not have to come before the council and what does. Unfortunately, this falls within the scope of what has to come before council without a major change in our purchasing ordinance.
What I heard is we have to change the purchasing ordinance if you want that to happen.
Yeah.
No, we can't change things the way it is now.
Purchasing less fuel has a higher cost per gallon. And so
Right.
you buy the truck at a time, and that's the cost for the truck.
No, it's a good thing that we're selling a lot.
Yeah.
It's about every other month, and that's about the turnaround, I think,
That's
that
what
I
I
was
thought, it's about
told.
5 or 6 times a year.
Yeah, and that's the turnaround I was told. When I asked about this 2 or 3 times ago, I asked, what's the turnaround on this? How long do we sit on this? And it was about 2 months, and that's about how often we're actually doing this. So.
And in previous years, the cost of the fuel hasn't been as much per gallon, so it never really, you can see we're just bumping the threshold. And so leading up to the last few years, we've been just under, so.
And yeah, it's a very routine item, but because of the specificity of our purchasing ordinance, If we don't do it, auditors are going to write us up.
Yeah.
So
No,
with
that's
that-
fine.
Any further discussion? I have one question. Can it be part of the consent agenda?
Can be.
And then if you guys want to pull it out separate and discuss it separate, we can do that.
Okay.
So in the future, let's put that under the consent agenda.
Good call.
Excellent.
That's
All
good
right.
right there.
Let's have a vote then.
Good job.
Can you come up with that a long time ago?
Then I need to, is there a motion?
We still have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Call the vote.
Hanford,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Item 11 is discussion and action on the appointment of city representatives to negotiate on the city's behalf for the fiscal year 2020-2021 IAFF Local 3782 union contract. It's that time of year where we go ahead and appoint our representatives. It's been Randy and Mary the last couple of years. I haven't had a chance to speak with either of them.
I have,
They're still willing to serve.
so I'm ready for a motion.
I'm ready.
Anybody else wants to volunteer?
Unless somebody wants to volunteer.
Okay.
I'm not.
I saw your mouth begin to
I know.
open, so I
I saw an eyebrow raise.
just make a motion to appoint Councilman Stelling and Councilwoman Hamilton to be city representatives to negotiate on the city's behalf for the FY21 IAFF Local 3782 union contract.
Second.
And thanks for doing that.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, second by Mr. Winters, to appoint Randy Stelling and Mary Hamilton as city representatives to negotiate on the city's behalf for the fiscal year 2020-2021 IAFF Local 3782 union contract. Any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Hanford,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Item 12 is discussion and action to appoint the following members to the City Business Manager Search Committee. This consists of the Personnel Committee members, Dr. Hannaford, Mrs. Hamilton, and Mr. Winters, as well as members of the community, Trent Goss and Karen Kane, and then one employee, Sandra Hamilton. All are willing to serve in this capacity, and I can when we get into, if we get a motion, I'll get some more information for you during discussion.
Motion to appoint the following members to the city manager search committee as listed in agenda.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Sherman, a second by Mr. Stelling, to appoint Bo Hannaford, Mary Hamilton, Daniel Winters, Trent Goss, Karen Kane, and Sandra Hamilton to the City Business Manager Search Committee. For further discussion, just so you guys are in the loop with how this is likely to pan out, the OMS, the group that we're using to help us conduct the search, they will want to meet with the City Council to determine what our expectations are going to be in the hiring of the city manager, everything from, what are we going to pay, to what qualifications do we need, to, availability and what our expectations are for all of those things. That will be something that we would do as a special meeting. It would all be an executive session. After that, they would go to work, get the job description ready, get the announcement out to the public. There'd be a period of time for allowing people to file for the position, and then that would then come back to the search committee to consider all the applicants, and MS would have screened out anybody that didn't meet the council's requirements already, so that everybody that came before the search committee for consideration would have already met the council's requirements. And then it would just come down to what preferences we have for other, maybe some intangible things about the folks that apply. But that would be the process, and then ultimately, after the committee has a recommendation come out, then we would take that back to executive session and interview ourselves, one or more of the candidates, and take the process forward from there. But the committee purpose would be to make recommendation to the council, narrow it down to 3 or 4. Any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Sherman,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
Item 13, remarks and inquiries by council members.
I just want to say thank you to the full task force, and the work that you guys have been doing. I'll be honest, when we came into this, I was very prepared to vote no on both of those agenda items just for fear of the cost associated with them and the funding availability. I think you guys made a great case, a great argument, a great presentation, so thank you very much for the work that you've done on that.
I'd like to say thank you to Joe Don for 8 years of excellent service, and for some of us, the first city manager we're under, and set a great example and a high bar, high standard.
I'd echo that, Joe Don, you've done a great job.
Agreed.
And I will say also thank you to the pool committee. I've told them a bunch of times that I appreciate all their work, and keep it up, guys.
Yeah, it's
We're gonna
great.
get
I wish
there.
they just would have done this a year ago, but, I mean, the
Health department.
state, yeah.
State.
All right, we're adjourned. Now we will open the regular meeting of the Alva Utility Authority. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Winters,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Eckhart,
Here.
Sherman,
Here.
Hamilton, Hannaford,
Here.
Stelling,
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Item 3 is discussion and action on the consent agenda. All of the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at AUA meetings will be approved by 1 vote of the authority. Any trustee desiring to discuss an item on the consent agenda may request that it be removed from the consent agenda and placed for discussion as the next item on the regular agenda. It will then be considered separately. The consent agenda consists of the consideration and action on the following items. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 21st, 2020. Item B, approval of claims in the amount of $122,041.68 and payroll expenses of $12,562.37. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sherman, a second by Mr. Winters to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Sherman,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Eckhart,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Stelling.
Yes.
All right, we will adjourn the Utility Authority and open the Economic Development Authority meeting. When you're ready, Angelica, will you please call the roll?
Winters,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Eckhart, Sherman,
Here.
Hamilton, Hannaford,
Here.
Stelling,
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Item 3 is discussion and action on the consent agenda. All of the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at AEDA meetings will be approved by 1 vote of the authority. Any trustee desiring to discuss an item on the consent agenda may request that it be removed from the consent agenda and placed for discussion as the next item on the regular agenda. It will then be considered separately. The consent agenda consists of the consideration and action on the following items. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 21st, 2020. And approval of claims in the amount of $301,192, payroll expenses of $12,562.37. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Sherman, a second by Mr. Stelling to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Please call the vote.
Sherman,
Yes.
Stelling,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Eckhart.
Yes.
Thank you all.